All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, you already know what time it is, and right here, right now, we have a very special guest. We have a hip-hop pioneer right here live on the line. We got the one and only, the very first woman to ever be signed to Def Jam Records. We got the ever so talented, the legendary Nikki D right here live on the line. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Mortal. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I don't think I've ever been on radio in Canada. You would be the absolute first.
Well, I gotta say, I definitely am glad I'm able to give you this opportunity, because I gotta say, like, you were such a legend. Honestly, you should be all over the radio, all over the world, and I'm not just saying that. Like, you are an individual that put it on for every other female MC within music.
Right. No, I concur. I mean, when you came out in the era during the time of, it was truly definitely about being the bricklayers, if you will, or paving the way for other female rappers to come behind us and be able to do even more. You know what I mean? Like, broaden the spectrum, evolve even more so far than we did. Because, remember, when we came out, they were still trying to figure the game out, even though right beforehand you had, not right before, but, maybe 10, 15 years earlier, you might have had Shy Rock, Lisa Lee, all the girls from, Cold Crush, Crash, the girls from back then. So when we came, Salt and Pepper prior to me, and Roxanne Shante, so during the golden era, we were just really like carving into that commercial, that mainstream era right there.
And also as well, I want to take you back to the year 1986. I actually saw on Discogs that you were actually a part of the King of the Streets compilation record on the song Let's Rap. I was wondering if you can tell our listeners a bit more about that. And of course, what was it like being a part of such a phenomenal record so early on in your legendary career?
Well, now let's rap. So now, I swear, Immortal, when I say this, you're going to be like, get the heck out of here. You definitely got to refresh my memory. Because I'm like, what? Let's rap. Because I've done a few things prior to where, and the only reason why I don't remember, not because it wasn't a big deal in my life, but because I've done so many things to get to, you know what I mean? To the main place that I've done some things. Like, let's rap. What else is on this record?
Honestly, I saw it on Discogs while I was doing my research, and I do know sometimes Discogs is kind of like Wikipedia of the music industry. Like, anybody can edit anything. So when I
I don't remember that, but go ahead.
When I saw it, normally I kind of just be like, okay, I know she started at Def Jam, but I didn't know anything before. So I thought, if I am correct, it would be a good question. But if I'm wrong, it's gonna end up like this, not a good question, right?
Yeah, this song, I'm like, I've done a lot of things, but Let's Rap has never, in all of my career, it might be, how we say in New York, if it's not true, it might be cat. Unless you actually have a song,
But also as well, back in the year 1989, you actually inked a deal with the one and only, the legendary Def Jam Records, where you actually became the first ever female MC to actually sign with that label. I was wondering, how did that record deal initially come to be for you?
Oh wow, I tell this story so much, but I'll just give you the brief on it. At that time with Def Jam, I was living in LA at the time. And then living in LA at the time, I met Ice-T. He was real cool. And I was younger, like, a lot younger than Ice-T, so I would consider him a big brother. And even though from the East Coast, we had moved out to Los Angeles. And, ran into him in the mall. We were, we got cool. He had some friends that me and my friends started hanging out with. So we all just started hanging out. And eventually, I would just be like saying everybody else's rhymes around him. He was like, hey, you need to rap yourself. And, I started writing rhymes. He started coaching me through stuff. And then I just started, coaching me through things. And then I started to get more involved and started to like it more. The more I realized I actually had a voice. That's not my dog. That's somebody else's dog because my window is open. And it's New York City. So, we just kind of, we went from there, and then I started working with the radio station. I met a girl over there. She was the promo girl. She was like, listen, I can connect you to some guys in New York. Like, you really, really good. Like, you need to. And at that time, the only label to be on was Def Jam. So that was really, truly my sole mission. She connected me with the LA Posse, who was recording LL Cool J's Bigger and Deffer album at the time. And they were like, they heard me over the phone. They was like, yo, you need to get out here. And you get out here, you cut your demo, we'll get the demo to Russell. So long story, less long. I got out there, we cut the demo, we got it to Russell. I'm going to say I had my deal maybe 6-7 months later. It wasn't that long. It's like I went out there on a mission, but it felt like forever, you know? But it took a long time to actually start to release it because then, you know, it was my official first single, Letting Off Steam.
And I have to ask as well, because obviously, as we already know, as we just spoke about, you were the very first female MC to actually sign with Def Jam. What was the rest of the roster? Were they actually very welcoming of you, or did you have to earn your stripes, as they say?
Oh, absolutely. I think just being an MC, in general, you got to earn your stripes. Like, there's no way to get into this game back then and not be a real MC. Being against people being up against, hold on one second, I'm sorry. Being against people on, let's say, not against, but being up side by side with the greats like LL Cool J and, you know, Slick Rick and Beastie Boys and all these other people, you absolutely had to earn your stripes. There was nothing at all about this thing that was easy. So I was always tested. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't like, oh, let me hear you rhyme or whatever, but, you know, I was always tested just because if you go in the studio, you better be already had a verse. I did Clap Your Hands with Davey D and them back in the days. That's a song that I did early on. I did some early stuff with Allison Williams, who was the female R&B on OBR, because I believe that was the R&B label for Def Jam. So I did a bunch of stuff back then prior to, but you always got to, like, you know, be the one. You always got to have your bars ready. You always got to be the one who's just as hard as the guy, because there was no way about a woman back then because it was so male-dominated that you had to have bars, period.
And when you brought up the Beastie Boys a few moments ago as well, I have to ask, like, did you ever get the opportunity to meet them well during your time at Def Jam? And of course, what were they like to be around? Because I heard some crazy stories that the Beastie Boys really enjoyed partying.
Oh, no, they do. They definitely did, without a question. I mean, everybody did back then, but the Beastie Boys definitely loved partying. Like, I met them back in the day at this club called Mel's. That was the first time I ever met them. Mel's was the hot spot back in, like, the 80s, that all of the hip-hop people would go to. You know, Russell, you had Andre Harrell, you had, you know, it wasn't even no Diddy. There was no, like, earlier, there was no Rockefeller or no Bad Boy then. It was really just Def Jam and maybe, like, a little Uptown record. So, you know, we definitely partied back in the days. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we were all, like, smoking the best weed we could find, if that, you know, and along with having some good drinks. But anything outside of that, I never, you know, wouldn't know anything about that. But we all partied definitely the way you partied back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, we had a good time. Good guys. Nice guys. Really, really nice. On top of everything else, really nice guys.
And also, as well, in the year 1990, you actually did a year-long Europe tour with R&B artist Allison Williams. I have to ask, from what you remember, what is one of your most fondest memories you shared well on tour out there in Europe? And of course, how did they perceive your music while you guys were out there on tour?
Oh, it was dope. Europe was always a big fan of hip-hop. Always a big fan of music from the States. And they were more authentic than I want to say sometimes about the hip-hop than the people in the States. They always wanted the hardcore stuff. They don't want anything that sounds like I clearly remember one time LL in Europe, and when I Need Love came out, it was big for us here because it was like, wow, a rap ballad, that's different, wow. So we did the I Need Love, you know, he did the I Need Love thing, and the crowd was just like, no. They didn't want to hear it. You know what I mean? They were just like, no, where's I'm bad at? Where's radio? Like, where's all that? Where's I Need a Beat? You know, they was like, not I'm bad. They was like, where's I Need a Beat? Where's radio? Like, everything else off that album that was hard, they did not want I Need Love. So they were very welcoming of it. They love hip-hop. I mean, to this day, they still love all the old school stuff. But we go out there and still go on tour. It's always going to be there.
And I gotta say, because the reason why I had to ask that question, because back in the day, as you already know, there was no internet, so getting records overseas was actually a really hard thing to do back in those days. There was no internet or anything. Everything was word to mouth.
Well, yeah, but that's why you always had to have, you know, we had people in UK, this guy Trent, who now works with one of the biggest artists out of the UK, which is Gig. So, and I'm sure you've heard of Gig out of the UK. There is, Trent was our guy for Rush. which is Rush Management, Def Jam, all kind of like the same family. So we always had our people out there, people that worked with Def Jam. Tim Westwood was really, really great with us. Like, we always had our home-based DJs. So getting the records out there would be an issue if you didn't already have a base. But because these people already locked themselves in, as soon as records came out, you know, they would get them. So they would be on them.
And also, as well, in the same year, on 1991, September 3rd, you actually released the phenomenal classic album, Daddy's Little Girl, that actually reached number 54 on the top R&B and hip-hop album charts. I was wondering, what is the story behind that iconic record?
Well, here's the funny thing, Tomoto. We had the single, and this is just a lesson for people who are, you know, trying to put out songs, and you're a new artist. And I'll tell you where the mess up was with Def Jam. I mean, West Party Johnson, who was with us, who's no longer with us at all, back then was the guy who did radio, and he worked the record, right? I remember I'll never forget when I came to him. He said, you know, we had a number one record. Daddy's Little Girl, the single, was number one in February, right? So think about it. February, we have all these pre-orders in the south part of the state. We have all these pre-orders in the West Coast. And, you know, we have all these pre-orders because the single is big. It's huge. It's number one on the Billboard chart. The single, Daddy's Little Girl. But now we have this whole big space, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. We back 7 months in between the albums. So when it comes to fans and consumers, you have to keep them engaged. And the reason why we only went number 54 on, which I thought was one of the best albums back then myself. Like, even when I listen to it now, it's still like talking all this slick stuff or whatever. But they kind of go away because you missed that moment where you could have captured them and you could have sold 2 million records. You know what I mean? Instead of 500,000. You know, it's like you don't really get that same chance again unless you put out that next big record. But, you know, unfortunately, we did get to number 54, but it still was great. I still toured. I still went a lot of places. I still did a lot of TV. I still did a lot of press. I still made way.
And I gotta say as well that album is still actually making waves today. I actually see on my Instagram a lot of people still post about it. So I gotta say that album is definitely going to live on forever within hip hop.
Yeah, it definitely does still pop. I still, you know, we still get, you know, it's just doing a lot of streaming still. Like when I get like ASCAP, you know, performance royalties or any other like streaming royalties, like you still see exactly where these records are played at. They'll tell you. A lot of stuff still happening in Canada for sure.
And also, as well, a few years after that, on September 24th, 1996, yourself and Queen Latifah were actually featured on the legendary soundtrack for the movie Set It Off on the song Name Callin'. I was wondering, how did that soundtrack opportunity come to be? And of course, what was it like working alongside fellow MC Queen Latifah?
Oh, yeah. No, that was great. Me and Latifah were always, you know, we're from the same neighborhood, North New Jersey. She's from East Orange, so we're like pivoted away from each other. So we grew up, you know, in the same neighborhood. We didn't grow up together as friends, but when we got into the industry, you know, it was like, oh, where you from in Jersey? Where you from in Jersey? So we connect there. So right there and there become homegirls. So Apache, who was also my friend at the time and then became my boyfriend, if you know Apache, you know his big record. He was on Tommy Boy, also a Clean Minute Off. So him and our connection made this connection happen between me and Queen Latifah. So we all just became one big family. And because I was the only other female MC around, but she did Name Calling, when she came with the song Name Calling, which was produced by Mark 45 King. She called me one day, she was like, hey, Nikki, come in the studio, come get on this song. I was like, all right, cool. She says, for the Set Off soundtrack. And I just went in and I freestyled my verse. I mean, but when you're in it, and you can just kind of come off the head and it still, you know, be dope, and it still makes sense. You don't have to go back and keep rewriting it. So I went in there, I freestyled it. It became a platinum soundtrack. So we did pretty good with that. That was awesome. I mean, Latifah's very, very, you know, she's super cool. Like, if you ever meet her, you ever be around her, very cool, very approachable, like, just a cool girl all the way around.
So when she actually came to you to actually set up that soundtrack, did you kind of hear about the movie on the streets on what they were doing with it? Because that movie turned out to be one of the most legendary hood movies ever.
Yeah. It became, as far as bank robbers go, for sure. No, I didn't hear it. Afterwards, yes, but not prior to. But afterwards, absolutely. You know, it was a big deal. It was a big deal, that movie. So, I mean, this is what we did back in the day. You know, you get into it, and it's like, you're doing what you're doing, so you don't really trip off of what it is. It's just, you just continue to do what you love to do. So for some people, like people who don't, you know, record or do the music that we do, or just still fans of the community, the hip hop culture, they're fascinated. We're fascinated. But for us, we're in it. So for us, it's just like, you know, it's like, you know, you go to the donut shop and you make the donuts. You know, you're like, oh, you really like that donut? I make these donuts all the time. So it's kind of the same thing. You know what I mean?
And also, as well, in the year 1998, you were actually featured on Redman's Doc's the Name 2000 album. I was wondering, how did yourself and Redman get connected? And of course, what was it like just being in the studio and working on that project with him?
Redman is my brother. Like, he's, I mean, not biological brother, but you know, he's definitely my brother in hip hop, and he's my Def Jam. So me and him got, and again, somebody from North New Jersey, where we're all from. We're all from the bricks. Reggie and I just always been cool. Like, we always hung out together. Like, he would come up to the studio. Like, the artists were always hanging around the studio. Back then, it was the thing to just go up to the label and see what's going on. And see what's popping. See what's talk. Because, again, we don't have the internet. We don't have all that stuff. So we have cell phones. Like, you know, that's the thing. But that's just it. That's just the way back in the day. That was just the way to get in touch with people when you can't find them any other way. But we would just go up to the label, hang out, and then Reggie was like, you know, I want you to get on my album. I want you to do this skit called, you know, the Chicken Head Convention. So I, again, go in there, freestyle that, comes out really dope. I do a part 2 of that on the EPMD album. I forget which one that was. And literally lately, somebody asked me to do another version of that for them. So that was just cool. Reggie is just a cool dude. Like, it's, again, when you're in it and you love what you do, it's all just so natural. You know what I mean? But it's always great voice on that, man. He's dope. He's still one of the dopest MCs, period.
And I gotta say, I love the collaborations that you guys actually did on that record. I honestly felt that you guys had such phenomenal chemistry on those songs, in my personal opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely felt it too, for sure. It's kind of hard to work with people when you don't really know them or like them. But people today, you know, it's different today. You know, you do a song and you send somebody the track via email after you finish. You send them the stems and all that. It's different how we connected back then as opposed to now. We were all actually going to the studio together, you know? Now people just kind of record on Pro Tools or Logic, whatever the digital program you want to use, and then you send over the stems to the artist via email. They put theirs on there, and boom, there you go.
And also, as well, the same year that you actually worked with Redman, you actually became the vice president of A&R at FlavaUnit Records, where you actually held the position until the millennium. I was wondering, how did that opportunity at FlavaUnit come to be? And of course, what was it like working there for that 2-year period of time?
Oh, that was great. We worked with Latifah and Shakim, who ran FlavaUnit Records. They had about 14 or 15 artists over there, group, solo artists, R&B, everything. So because I was so versed at Def Jam, because after my album Def Jam, I did record a second album, by the way, the whole second album by the Bomb Squad produced, which is Eric Sadler and the same people who produced Public Enemy and Ice Cube. We did a whole second album, but then some politics got involved with the label, and it didn't quite work out, and I'll just say that. But I wound up at FlavaUnit Records because they knew that I had a lot of insight on, you know, recording, you know, records and administration and all these things that you needed to do, because I also, you know, was an executive on the other side of Def Jam after a while. I just kind of was like, you know what, I'll just go on the executive side of it all. And it was good over there. Like, I had 15 acts, went over there, jump-started everybody's projects, cracked those budgets open, got them all recording, and, you know, hey, I don't control when the records come out. I only control when they're actually, you know, how they're being recorded. When they're being recorded, I did my job. As far as where the label landed in the end, I mean, that's kind of like, you know, just unfortunately a lot of records didn't come out. We did do a FlavaUnit compilation, but that was good. But all those artists that were on it, you know, it would have really been great for you guys to hear them, because it was some really, 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 really good talent, you know, including Channel Live, who we signed over there. at the time. So it was some really, really good stuff over there.
And I have to ask as well, because I do know obviously like that was about 20 plus years ago where those records didn't come out. Do you think now with the internet being the way it is, do you think somehow whoever does own those masters might actually release them to the general public?
That would be great. I think it would be a shock to the culture. Considering, you know, it's like right now I feel like the culture needs a shock. You know? Like I feel like it would be a good thing to have something from back in the days, like for instance, the verses with Jada with the Lock and Dipset, and how Jada Kiss pretty much upset the game, if you will. Like nobody expected it to turn out like that. We thought we were going to hear these songs and everything was going to be great. But when Jada got in his bag and he was on some, listen, first of all, they're rhyming over their tracks. We don't do that. They're forgetting their songs. Like, he put it out there that they weren't focused and they wasn't ready for that. They kind of just showed up. And I think they thought they were just going to do their songs. But they didn't realize that Jada, Cheek, and South P stayed doing this. And they found out the night of the verses. So the great thing is I heard some of the newer artists were there because I wasn't there. Some of the newer artists were there, like Drake and Migos. And it kind of made all of them go, wow. Like, that's really, really, really real rap, if you will. And not saying that theirs is not, but if we're talking about MCing and bars and rhyming and all of that, that's what it is. Today, rappers really just, you know, there's nothing wrong with it, but today it's all just, you know, singing and songs and, you know, catchy hooks and stuff like that. Like, where is the lyric that you remember? You know what I mean? Like, back in the days, it was that thing where you'd be like, oh, you heard what he said? Now, we can memorize what we're hearing today, but do we really feel it in our soul? You know what I mean? Do we really feel it in our gut? So that would kind of, to me, be the difference. And I feel like there would be a culture shock of music from back then, or even just pulling back that whole style of braggadocious, real hardcore MCing came back, and, you know, and people made it matter. I think it would be dope.
And while we're actually on the topic, because when you brought up the versus battle, I have to ask, if anyone ever came to you to actually do a versus battle, do you think you'd actually do one? Because I gotta say, you know, especially having Def Jam's first female MC, I think that would be a phenomenal versus for anybody.
I think what would be dope is if there was another female who I love, right, is my sister. Me and Rage could do it, because we both have just that one album, I think. I think Rage only has one, too, yeah. So people who came out never got a chance to really grow further out. And for people who don't know the songs that well, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to have one-offs. You know what I mean? Because right now, versus is really about catalog, which is why it's hard to match people up. Like, you can't match a person up who has 5 albums or 10 albums with somebody who has 2. Because they won't get that 20-song run that you get on versus, you know? So if I had to do it, it would be with my sister whom I love, you know? And it would be with Rage. I would love that. Like, you know, just one album, you know, or maybe they would say, you know what, you just get to pick one album to pull from. You know, it's for other artists who might have other albums out. But, you know, me and Robin are so close that it would just be fun for us. That's it. Because we've always been that way. We've always been competitive, but we've always been truly, truly like sisters. Like, truly. You would think we came from the same family.
And also as well, in the year 2012, you actually released the phenomenal mixtape titled Team Strong. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners a bit more about this phenomenal record, and of course, is it still available to be streamed or purchased today if we haven't already snagged ourselves a copy?
Yeah, you know what? It's on my Spotify page. It's on the Nikki D Spotify page. It's definitely up there. And Team Strong was... You know, I was working with a gentleman named Sean Penn back when he was rhyming, and another guy named I don't know if this is the one that Digger was on, but there was a couple of Team Strong albums. It was, I think, 2, and the second one we put Digger on. But if it was the first one, it was just me and Sean Penn, and the second one we added Digger. It was just because it was time to come with something new and fresh, and I figured I would still just, you know, because once you're an artist, once you're a rapper, you're never not a rapper. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. That's why I'm always bothered when people are talking about how, people are too old to do this, too old to do that. I think if you can still get it, then get it. But Team Strong was me just kind of like reinventing myself as Nikki Strong and kind of like, you know, moving away from the Nikki D brand and reinventing myself. So that's where the Team Strong came from, because it would be Nikki Strong. And we just called it Team Strong. It was a great, great, great project. Like, I still listen to the songs on there and be like, wow, like, spit game was so leveled up, it wasn't even funny. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, anybody who knows me will tell you, I am the most low-key, down, you know what I mean, humble person, feet on the ground. I don't do all the celebrity stuff. I never really have. But I definitely had my spit game up crazy on those mixtapes. And right now I'm working on some stuff, though. So.
And when you actually said a few moments ago about how people put an age on hip-hop, I noticed that, but the things that I noticed, it's always the younger individuals that are doing that, but they don't realize that legendary individuals like yourselves, you know, have been doing music the proper way, going to the studio, working with these 12-inch reels, doing music, and it sounds bad to say, the hard way for a long time. And I think individuals like yourselves can wrap circles around 90% of these young cats.
Well, we're talking bars, absolutely, for sure. We're talking about appealing to a crowd that's different because we are talking generational, differences. But I absolutely believe that because I don't think any of them come from the era of that. So if we're talking about, and the great thing about us is we can conform into anything because we come from a place where, you're going to have to definitely get all the ingredients to make this cake. And this is my analogy of it, and I always say this. Back in the days, we would have to get the eggs, the butter, the flour, the sugar, the water, the milk, everything you need to make the cake, right? And you have to put the right ingredients in it. You have to, make sure everything is just right, and then you go ahead and you bake it, and then boom, it's ready when it's ready. Today, you kind of just open the pack and you add water. That's how I feel. Because nothing sticks anymore. Like, we're hearing new songs. Like, are people really still playing Kanye's album? They probably are. He's at a lot. He's at, 2 or 3 billion streams, but it might be people catching up, and it might be, be playing from anywhere. So obviously somebody is listening to it. But are we constantly playing it? The Drake album I love both of these albums. So just so we understand. But I feel like music doesn't stick that much. Like, I love Migos, I love Future. Like, I like all these guys. But I feel like the songs just don't stick that much because they don't, people are so quick and on to the next thing, But if we're talking about, the whole back and forth thing, just like going back to verses. If you notice verses, the youngest people who did verses, I think, was like Bow Wow, Soulja Boy, who are literally in their 30s. You know what I mean? So, or did Soulja Boy hit 30 yet? I know Bow Wow did, but they're still young, but they were doing it when they were young. So if you notice, verses only work with people who have some real long catalog in the game that has made big marks in the game. So this is something that has to happen in the industry in order to keep it relevant. You have to have these OGs in there. You have to. Because you have to be reminded what the culture really is and where it comes from. The essence of it.
But I have to ask, what is next for yourself, Nikki D? I do know you said that you're working on new material, but I know you can't let too many cats out of the bag, but I have to ask, is there anything else we happen to miss during this broadcast? Anything else you still want to talk about or promote? Well, we still got you here live on the FM dial here in Canada this evening.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, I know people are checking out the new drill beat era and all that stuff. If you check out my son, right, because my son is rapping right now. His name is Chi Chi. So I'll spell it for you just so y'all can go ahead and, go to his page, probably check him out if you're listening. It's Chi Chi, so it's CHI, Guap, GWAP, God, GOD. So it's Chi Chi Guap God. That's his Instagram handle. He just finished a song. We've been working on this. We've been actually working this single for quite some time, kind of the way you did it back in the days. We've been working a song called Tag 'Em In. So we did the original version, then we threw Method Man on there for the remix, so you'll get Method Man on the remix. And now we're working on his EP and his album that is to come at the top of the year. And we're also about to drop another single and a few more features with him. I am working on an EP myself to drop next year, first quarter. I got some new dope stuff out of Brazil and Switzerland, producers from out of the country, which they are, again, hardcore hip-hop people who love hip-hop. Also working on a book, but more like a documentary style. It's going to be pretty dope. And if you look for me on Instagram, I am, as well, Brick City Babe. So Brick as in brick, City as in city, Babe as in babe. BRICK, City, CITY, Babe, BABE, Brick City Babe. So you can find me there. But, and that's most of my handles. But for the most part, yeah, and on Twitter, I'm OG Nikki D. OGNIKKID. But, yeah, I definitely got some new stuff coming. You have to. I mean, I still got it. So I'm just going to go ahead and push this out there and make it happen.
And I gotta say, you know, just hearing that makes me excited. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing what comes next from the legendary Nikki D, and I'm definitely looking forward to snagging myself a copy when it does drop to the general public.
Oh yeah, definitely. And look out for the Queens of Hip Hop tour that's happening next year too. But it's here in the States. We're gonna do about 10 cities. It's we did it in Atlanta 2 or 3 years ago. Me, Rod Digger, MC Light, Yo Yo, Eve, Mia X, Moni Love, Lady of Rage, Remy Ma. I think it was 9 of us. Yeah, it was a really, really, really big deal. And then they added so many more to the new one. So there'll be a big female concert coming festival next year.
But I gotta say, first and foremost, Nikki, thank you so much for just taking a little bit of your time out here this evening and sliding into my radio station airwaves. Honestly, it was most definitely an honor just to be able to interview such a legendary hip-hop pioneer like yourself. Thank you for just being the first individual to pave the way for so many other legendary individuals just like yourself. Thank you so much for your time here this evening.
Oh, no, absolutely. Thank you and my apologies to anybody who was looking for the interview yesterday. I totally forgot. I actually wound up, like I told you, I was going to an event yesterday that I had on my calendar. Totally slipped my mind. So, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate anybody that appreciates me. So I definitely make time for people who, you know what I mean, who are there for me. I would have done it live on Instagram. It would have been dope, but I wasn't ready. I'll be honest. I'm sitting here chilling watching clickbait on Netflix.
Hey, trust me, no worries. Whenever we were having the brief phone issue, that's always like my backup. But me personally, I'm not really huge on the whole video interviews. I know a lot of people are. Me, I'm more of the audio. That way I can broadcast it over the radio station airwaves. But
right,
Instagram Live is kind of like my last resort backup, where I'm still like, I don't like video, but you know, if it has to happen, it has to happen, right?
Right, absolutely, absolutely. No, I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Immortal. I really, really do. And if you need to drop or something from me, let me know. I'll go ahead and hit that. It takes you 2 seconds. I just do it on a voice note or something. And then I go ahead and send it over, and that way you got it for your station whenever you want to play it, you know?
Sounds great. Thank you so much. And I definitely will get that script off to you here in a few moments as well. Thank you so much again, Nikki, and definitely have yourself a wonderful night out there in New York.
No worries. Thank you so much. All right. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you as well. Thank you.
Take care.